One event that shook the entire history of the United States and the world was the sudden eruption in the Cascades one humble summer day in 1980. It was Mount St. Helens, an ordinary peak that once towered over the hundreds of miles of sprawling trees and green, just like its nearby peers. But today, it was a wall of volcanic debris that would stack itself dozens of miles into the outermost edge of the atmosphere, and later stretch hundreds of miles, casting a shadow of destruction over North America. To this day, the scar it left behind is visible from space. But this wasn't the only thing it left behind, but also an urban legend, or perhaps even a curse, that cements itself into a rabbit hole far deeper than any volcano could hope to reach. This is how a single deadly day created the curse of Mount St. Helens, and why you can never, ever film here. And I did it anyway.
Mount St. Helens is about to blow up, and it's gonna be a fine, swell day. Everything's gonna fall down to the ground and turn gray.
Well, today we're going to be talking about the curse of Mount St. Helens. Now, the curse of Mount St. Helens has to do with a mountain known as Mount St. Helens. Welcome to YouTube Unsolved. If my memory doesn't fail me, we're on Season 5, episode number somewhere around 4 or 5. I don't want to spoil it, so we're just going to jump straight into the backstory first, and just kind of give the context of what all of this even is. Also, my name is Dallas, also known as Inferness, and welcome back to the Thetekkitrealm for all those who are new here. I know you're not, but I have to say it. Now, the curse of Mount St. Helens originates from a creepypasta. Now, this creepypasta, or short web story, was originally dug up from 4chan, and then later posted to creepypasta.com. The name of the original story was just simply Mount St. Helens. Although this rather unspecific name may have attracted rather skewed interest, the story was more so of a warning than anything else. Mount St. Helens. Has anyone been to Mount St. Helens before? I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a volcano in the Cascade Range of Washington State, most famously known for its incident in 1980. But aside from its now iconic standalone appearance, it holds something far more sinister than what mostly is ever talked about. The story went into detail that after a trip to Washington, the narrator stopped at a nearby small town near the Columbia River as a backroads sightseeing trip. It was there when they ended up talking to a specific member of an indigenous tribe, of which the tribe made up most of the population of this small town. Now, the author was staying in a tribe-run inn, so considering the fact that there wasn't really much to do in the literal middle of nowhere, the author was invited by one of the managers to join in on the tribe's evening gathering. Now, this was a tribe of natives that had lived in this particular area for just an untold amount of moons. A really, really long time. Literally in the range of thousands of years, presumably speaking. Now, this was right in the middle of the 3 monolithic largest mountains in the area, which composed of Mount Adams, Mount Hood, and then, of course, Mount St. Helens. Now, this tribe was literally located right in the center of these 3 mountains. And to get straight to the beans of it, these mountains were inseparable parts of this tribe's culture, acting almost like guardians over the land that they belonged to, and serving as timeless, almost godlike figures that protected the people of that land. Now, the history of this tribe, well, didn't end well. Almost every one of their population dying to various diseases that were brought forth after the expedition of Lewis and Clark. You may have heard of that one from 8th or 7th grade. And then, leading to them basically going almost extinct. This small village marked the literal end of the Oregon Trail, and also the end of this tribe, because this was where the remaining small amount of their members, which used to be in the thousands, ended up residing. Only the small amount enough to fill up this small village. And it was told that even before their land was taken and their population numbers dropped off, the river that ran right through their land's territory and acting as a central piece of their ancient culture was eventually flooded over with the construction of the Bonneville Dam in 1930. And although many of the tribe members resettled themselves and moved to different tribes altogether, some of them remained by the early 1900s and supposedly cursed the very land itself that they used to belong to. And the author emphasizes this term as if they, the tribe, belonged to the land itself and not the other way around, so that the land would become angry and literally vicious to everyone who had desecrated them. In particular, the author recalls a shaman at the gathering who recounts a gesture towards one of the mountains, swearing that the very land underneath it would kill the last man to hold its witness that didn't have their blood, and that all who would observe it would reap death just as well. Now, this was written in old tribal booklets that were, well, old. The narrator claims to have looked through some of them, and even to have seen their library full of these books that were all handwritten and woven by hand. That's what I call dedication. And interestingly enough, this one handwritten scroll, for a lack of a better term, used the phrase, "the land underneath would kill." Now, the author finishes his experience by detailing how on the last day of his stay there, he pulled aside one of the town elders just to ask more about it. Now, the man looked unwilling to discuss the actual details, but explained that the book had been written sometime in the early 1900s, and that their history was just nothing but history. And that's it. But he left the narrator with a warning, however. A warning about the very power of the land itself. And not just in the way that they specifically believed in, but objectively. And how he would be wise not to disrespect it. Now, the creepypasta part comes in as a theory, nonetheless. The author purportedly kept the book that he was interested in without permission. Well, that's tactful. Now, the context of this book was given as being written by one of the first shaman of this tribe. Alright, have fun with that one, kids. I hope I'm not getting a cold. Now, reading along, it becomes impossible to interpret without consulting a translator online, who claimed that the text was actually in Sahiptin, which was a language that they actually spoke, so they were able to translate this text, which was handwritten, for a commission. Now, it became clear within these writings that the people of the Sahiptin tribe believed in cursed years that went in cycles that lined up perfectly from the beginning where Lewis and Clark's expedition took place. And these were all cycles that essentially numbered in 10,000 moons. So when you add up all the 10,000 moons and then subtract the new moons every single month, you get about once every 28 years is a cursed year according to this tribe. And that started from after the expedition of Lewis and Clark. So what you get essentially is that it lines up perfectly all the way until the year 1980. And if we add another 10,000 moons to that, then we land on the year 2008. Okay, for those of you who don't understand why that's interesting, it's because almost all YouTube and internet mysteries seem to have originated in the year 2008, and it's basically like the holy shrine of this series. But anyway, we're about to go full on Old Testament. Now, in the weeks that led up to May 18th, 1980, Robert Landsberg was documenting the volcano known as Mount St. Helens, photographing it with his reliable camera and documenting it closer than anyone else could at the time. It wasn't until that one brisk morning on that fateful day, however, did his luck run dry. Just after sunrise, and right as Landberg had found the perfect spot at the foot of the mountain to photograph, did the sudden explosion that would be heard for thousands of miles erupt from the top. Its fury was so violent that it propelled half of the mountain's mass outwards at the speed of 800 miles per hour, straight into the direction Robert Landsberg was standing. Within only seconds, a multiple-high plume of ash rapidly expanded outward, approaching him with a ground-shattering shockwave. It became quite clear to Landsberg that there would be no way to escape the pyroclastic flow, and that he most certainly was not going to survive. In a last-ditch effort, Landsberg captured 3 final pictures of the raging ash cloud as it advanced towards him, before lying down flat over the film in an act to preserve it. The 1,500-degree cloud of volcanic ash enveloped Landsberg and decimated millions of trees in its wake before spiraling up and over the rest of the country. 10 billion tons of rock had collapsed from the mountain, forming a mile-wide impact crater where once stood a prominent peak that could be seen for hundreds of miles. The pictures that were recovered from the scene of Landsberg's remains are the only
surviving.
So if the words of the shaman are true, then it would be fair to consider their specific eerie connection to the events that unfolded. The excerpt from the old text claimed that the land itself would kill its last witness and all who observed it. Now, putting aside all the melodramatic oblivion dialogue here, this could be easily connected with the events of Robert Landsberg's incident. And when it comes to all else who observed it, well, the urban legend goes on to say this. It could very well be possible that this tribe had somehow foresaw the events of this massive, deadly event of nature that would kill, and in some way, whoever was witness to it would fulfill this prophecy, I guess, such as to observe it. I guess before cameras were invented, this was their idea of it, and that all else who would observe it would reap death or itam mapayukatu ku kashikitka, become of rot in the dirt. Well, that's pleasant. So naturally, one might conclude that these pictures are also cursed as well, and now that you are writing a fuming comment being mad at me because I just ruined your life. But hold on, don't worry, the only life that's gonna be ruined here today is gonna be mine. And we're gonna get into the nitty details of why.
This would be enough to solidify the curse of Mount St. Helens through the lens of Robert Landsberg and his remarkably unscathed camera film, which somehow happened to be the only thing that survived the broiling heat of the mile-high ash cloud. Everything else, including the photographer, were simply reduced to scorched remains of the previously untouched forest. But that's only the part where the legend ends, and the absolutely disturbing shit begins. There have been several disappearances in the Mount St. Helens vicinity since the blast of '80, most notably being the very few to venture to the very top of the mountain's new summit, particularly ending up photoing and videoing when they got there.
Now, one specific example had caught attention: Lance During. Now, he walked to the absolute highest point of the mountain's crater and then videoed the volcanic interior on a VHS recorder. Only on the way back to his house in Seattle, he would be involved in a head-on collision with a bus that would decimate his car, killing him, but saving the camera in the wreckage. And then multiple others up until the year of 2000 would make it up to the very top of Mount St. Helens, only to then vanish without a trace. One visitor in 2001 hiked up to the very rim of the mountain and took a whole bunch of photographs with his family that he intended to put into a scrapbook. Now, at some point on the way down, the man stopped in order to take another photo on top of a relatively high rock, which was placed above all the rest, which had a better view of the rest of the surroundings. However, once the man had rounded a corner, he vanished, and when the mother went to go get the children, asking where the father had went, seemingly because they had been the last ones to see him, they said that they had only seen a funny-looking man who looked just like his father round a corner, appear right behind his dad, sneak up behind them, and then clap really loud, and then all of a sudden, their father just disappeared like magic, before making exaggeratedly funny, laughing faces towards the kids. Now, apparently they thought this was really funny, as they seemed amused. They may have even thought that the father was playing a joke on them, but the father was literally never found ever again, without a single trace, with not even any search effort finding or coming up with anything. A more recent experience comes from another user online. An avid vlogger, known as Very Terry, documented a hike going to the top of Mount St. Helens for the purpose of a nature documentary that they were making of the entire Pacific Northwest. They hiked to the very top and then took multiple photos at the very top of what's known as the Devil's Incline, which is the adjacent peak to Monitor Ridge, which is the tallest point of all of the Mount St. Helens crater at 8,400 feet. And it was only after would they go into details of the litany of misfortune that would then go on to ensue in their life, starting as soon as their descent from the mountain and then lasting for years. First, their climbing rope would snap, leaving them with a sprained ankle near the bottom of the boulder field. Now, Very Terry would have to walk over 2 miles through the forest just to get back to camp because there was no help and no service around to assist them whatsoever. They had to walk all that way with almost a broken foot. But then when they did reach the camp, the weather changed so suddenly, and then all of a sudden a cloudburst of rain basically completely flooded over the only dirt road that led up to the trailhead, making it completely impassable. So they were stuck there for 2 days, until the road was finally cleared again enough to get out of the mountain. And very Terry could not get any medical assistance that entire time for their broken foot on top of that. Now once Terry finally got to a hospital in Vancouver, the city south of Mount St. Helens, not the other city that's big and in Canada, well, the doctor somehow managed to mismatch their x-rays and then misdiagnose very Terry's foot condition as just being something that they didn't have, and instead they diagnosed them with pills that they took home without any other treatment like surgeries or a cast. So basically, their foot was left untreated, and very Terry didn't even realize what had happened until all of a sudden they realized that their foot was completely infected. Terry would have to then end up staying at another hospital for about 2 straight weeks because of this whole ordeal. And they were left with essentially a permanently crippled lower leg and a permanently disabled foot. So now forever bound to a wheelchair or a cane, Terry could now never do any hiking or exploring pretty much ever again. And then they would then be let go from their place of work months later because of their injury. But on the plus side, they would be given a pension that they would then be able to use to finally put a down payment on a small cabin house that they always dreamed of having. Now this house would then later be ransacked and broken into, with all of his belongings being stolen, including his laptop. And this was the only crime that was recorded in that area for the last 20 years. And it also left them without the ability to even keep doing their blog as a result. Terry would continue to post to Reddit documenting that their life was finally trending upwards, fortunately. But they were still suffering from increasing financial problems and pain from their injury, which had now turned into a permanent disability. And this whole time, they were still living in the foothills of Mount St. Helens. Like, dude, get out of there. And the single last post from their account to this very day was just a picture of Mount St. Helens erupting before going offline permanently. So the creepypasta speculates that the curse activates by documenting the top highest point of Mount St. Helens in any way, either through video or picture or artistic depiction even, and upon doing this the curse basically unfolds and spreads itself to its next carrier like a virus until someone else makes the poor choice of taking their place, either willfully or unwittingly, holding true to the ancient words that the Sahaptin Shaman had spoke many moons ago. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your butts, because I'm not just getting cursed today, I'm bringing you along with me. So yeah, I'm gonna climb to the top of Mount St. Helens and we're gonna see what happens. Why do I do this to myself?
All of my friends, family, and animals probably going to run away. But me, I'm feeling curious, so I think I just might stay.
Looks like it's time to go. You know what? We're going squatch hunting. That is a big mountain. You really can't get here unless you're trying to get here. So now it's about 52 degrees up here. So by the time I get to the top of the mountain, it'll probably be 52 degrees up there. It'll probably just follow me as I get to the top. It's a good day to die. Okay, and the journey begins. I have a 20-pound backpack on, which is going to make it just a tad bit, a little bit worse, but no big deal. So, I'll update you when we get to something interesting. There's no snow and no clouds so far, so that's a pretty good sign. All right, here we are at about 5,000 something odd feet. The whole mountain kind of looks like what that mountain looks like. So it's pretty much just straight up from there. There's the top. Not too far away. now we are at 7,500 feet. There's the summit. Check that out. Ta-da! Well, now what? Shit. I hope it doesn't blow up again. It's like it erupts right now. Oh, sorry. Tough luck. Oh, tough luck. So right now we're at like 8,300 feet. And, dude, it's not even that cold, really. So, nice try. So legend goes that basically, if you film here, and upload it to YouTube, or just basically, if you film here at all, you're gonna get cursed. I do believe that there's other like accounts or eyewitness testimonies of people filming here. Overall, just to have a lot of stuff go wrong. So, that's right, we made it for the glory of Thetekkitrealm, and this is it. Alright, I'm standing at the absolute peak of Mount St. Helens right now, and this is basically where the curse is supposed to take place, but I don't have a good curse radar, so I mean I can't really tell. Nice, wonderfully cloudy day to do this, so maybe the curse will give me a pass. There's some, this whole thing like used to be like a continuation of the mountain, but it's now just impact crater. Anyways, time to go. Well, I can't say I feel any more cursed than normal. I still have my arms and legs. Barely. But, you know, aside from that, hopefully I haven't been replaced secretly by an evil doppelganger who's just gonna take my place from now on and take all the credit. And I'm probably gonna need a wheelchair for the next week and a half or so, but other than that... Oh, and I scratched my pinky at some point on the way down, so I guess the curse has actually already begun. Wait a minute. What if it spreads through video? Well, that's cool. We'll see how this unfolds. No disrespect intended towards any of the natives involved in this video, or their culture, and especially those who did lose their life on that one fateful day. At the end of the day, this is just another mystery. And special thanks to... You have a really kick-ass name. And honestly, bless you. If you want to see behind the scenes of this video and more videos, you can go and become a member below, and it starts for a very cheap price, and I think it's worth it. So, in the meantime, I'll leave you at that. This was the curse of Mount St. Helens, and until next time, have an uncursed day. I know I need it.